Okay, picking up, I accidentally ended the last video. So just kind of starting over here. I didn't mean to end the last video when I did. I hit the wrong button. I meant to zoom in and I ended the video. So the previous video ended abruptly. So just starting over, the last problem, doing this last one. We'll just start over. By the end of 2010, women made up over half of the labor force in the United States for the first time in history. The graph shows the percentage of jobs in the U.S. labor force held by men and by women from 1972 to 2009. The formula P equal negative 2.2 square root of T plus 63.8 models the percentage of jobs in the U.S. labor force, P, held by men T years after 1972. A. Use the appropriate graph to estimate the jobs in the U.S. labor force held by men in 2002. And now I'll do what I mean to do, just zoom in so we can see that graph better. Okay, if I had a color printer, this would be in color, but I don't have a color printer. So men is the top curve. 2000 looks like it's right about there. And so doing my best to draw a straight line there. It looks like it's, oh, then they actually do tell me a number right there. I didn't notice that. They do tell me that number there. So by the graph, 50.2%. So there's the percentage of jobs in 2000 held by men, 50.2%. Okay, we'll go back out so I don't need to see the graph as much anymore. Use the mathematical model to determine the percentage of jobs held by men in 2000. Okay, the mathematical model was P equal negative 2.2 square root of T plus 63.8, where T equals years after 1972. So 2000 is going to give me T equal 2000 minus 1972. And not trusting what that's 28, but I will check just to make sure that that's 28. And indeed 28. So T equals 28. And so my answer is going to be P equal negative 2.2 square root of 28 plus 68.3. And you just ask the calculator what that is. Negative 2.2 square root of 28 plus 63.8. And if I punched all the buttons correctly, that's 52.16 to 2 decimal places. And here decimal is perfectly fine because they gave us decimals. And then that should somewhat match the graph. Not completely, but somewhat. Now the reason why I say it should somewhat match is that mathematical models estimate what's going on. Here's the actual data. Here's a function that comes close to modeling that data. It's not perfect, but it should be close, and it's relatively close. This gives me an overestimation, but no model is going to be perfect. Different models do better jobs than others, but no mathematical model is absolutely perfect. But when you work on your models a whole lot, you can get really good estimations. So it's not perfect, but it's not horrible either. Then the last thing we need to do in this section, according to the formula, when will 48% of the jobs be in the labor force? And this last problem, just in general, is very typical of things you encounter in algebra textbooks. Whether a word problem is a plug into problem or a set equal to problem. Letter B here was a plug into problem, that they gave us a value of T, in this case 28, And since that was a value of t, we plugged 28 into it. But when I look at letter C, it says, when will 48% of the jobs? Well, when is telling me find a value of t, because t is time, and then 48% is telling me that p equals 48. And a comment here, I didn't need to change this to a percentage because the values are coming out as a percentage. So you don't need to fool around with decimals versus percents. Everything's coming out as percents. But here they're saying find a value of t, when, find the time, and then they give me the 48 as a percent, the 48 is a percent, and so that's a value of p. So when I look at the equation they gave me, this is a set equal to problem. 48 equals negative 2.2 square root of t plus 63.8. And I just solved that. This is a square root equation, so I'm going to get the square root alone. So 48 minus 63.8 gives me negative 15.8 equals negative 2 times the square root of t. Continue getting that square root alone. And so I'm going to get the square root of t equals and roughly 7.18. And then finally square both sides. And so I'm going to get t equals 51.55. Then you type that into their, my lab math, usually pretty good about how many decimal places. It might say round to the nearest whole number, so we'll round that up to 52. Squiggly equal mark means approximately 52. And then you answer the question. You type in 52 and it says it's wrong, but you got to remember what t was. T was years after 1972. So 1972 plus 52 comes out to be 2024. And so there would be the answer to that one. And that's the end of this section.